glad you could join this session. My name is Neha. I'm going to be moderating the session, and I'm very pleased to introduce to you Pamela James, who is going to be the speaker of the session. She's from PALOMA St. James, and she's going to be talking about prioritizing people over planet, over processes and products, and telling us a little bit about what happens when our workplaces and processes become more human-centric. The session will be recorded, so if you don't want to be recorded, you can turn off your video, but of course we like seeing faces and we like to make it interactive. So if you don't mind being recorded, please also turn on your camera. It would be nice to see everyone. And Pamela will talk for about 20-25 minutes, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. So if you have questions along the way while she's speaking, please feel free to add them in here. I just sent the link to Mentimeter. So please keep adding the questions, so when we come to Q&A, we have more stories to hear from Pamela. All right, then without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Pamela to tell us her story.
Okay, thank you so much, Neha. Thanks for the introduction. I can't start without asking you guys to give your thoughts or your prayers to the Ukraine and to the Russian citizens. And I'm just grateful to join you guys. And I want you to invite you to become a part of our conversation, because I think one of the oh, I'm sorry, I've got somebody else here. But one of the things we want to do when we actually prioritize people, you know, over the planet, over processes and product, is that we want to be able to have a conversation, and we want to be able to just really be transparent in those conversations. So let me start with my journey. So I'm a fashion designer, and that's kind of where my journey began. So I started in slow fashion, you know, pretty much meaning that, you know, I tried to be conscious about the environment, and I wanted a product that simplified women's lives. Well, the issue was that with that is that people kept asking for more and more and more product, and I wasn't comfortable with that. And I think because of that, I just knew that there had to be something different, something better. So I went to Rajasthan, that's in India, and decided I was searching for fabrics, and I was searching for block printing and just something different, because I knew I needed something different. So what I ran into was a group of women who really needed my help. And by this, I mean, there was a group of sex trafficked women out of Jaipur, and they were sex trafficked by their families, not just by, you know, someone snatching them off the street. So they really were sex traded. So what we decided to do is that these women really needed something to do. They lived in a very isolated place, so they were not able to get to work and get to different places. So with this wonderful Indian couple who are our dearest friends now, we started a program, and the program allowed them to learn how to sew, knit, and send products and sell products to the United States. But one of the things that I learned on this journey, more than just helping the women, I really went to India to change India, and India really changed me. But the biggest and most powerful thing that I learned is that little old me could change one human life. And by changing that human life, I could change generations. Now, everything has a reverse. The reverse is that just the way that I could change a human life for the good, I had to look at my work process. Was I changing a human life for the bad? So I want to show you a little bit of what we did. I'm not too good at the Zoom, but we're going to find it. Here we go. I'm going to share screens with you so I can, let's see, where are we? So close your eyes quickly, because my screen shared a bit off.
We can see your screen.
Okay.
And we can't hear an audio if you want us to listen to something.
Okay. I think the subtitles are fine because it's in Hindi. Okay, thank you for bearing with my poor Zoom skills. But what I learned from that, I just, I couldn't believe that we were making such an impact, and we were changing generations. But again, I want to reiterate, the power of being able to change and help change a generation also meant that I had the equal power to really destroy a generation. So coming back, home, I had a lot of time to think. And I started thinking, well, what can we do differently? And I went to my colleagues, we're all in retail, and I heard the same word, sustainability, sustainability. And so I said, okay, I can buy that. So I started buying sustainability. And what I realized in buying it is that sustainability is not sustainability if we are making too much, if we're buying too much. So, I was still trying to ride the sustainability train, and I came across a store that had a $5 t-shirt that was quote unquote sustainable. And I thought, that's interesting, because being in retail, I understand that that shirt had to cost that particular retailer $1.33. So that means between someone getting the material, buying the material, making it, shipping it to all the stores, there was $1.33 involved. And that's when I realized, oh, so the shirt may be sustainable and it may actually, help with climate, but is it really sustainable to sell a t-shirt for $1.33? Would it sustain the human life that actually made the t-shirt? So that's one of the things that, that I thought about. And I actually got a little bit deeper and more spiritual with it, because I'm a little weird like that. You think of most religions, most of the world religions, there's something about the touch of something. You'll have a piece of fabric. Jesus talks about touching the hem of the garment. Other cultures and religions talk about, a lock of the hair, but there's a humanness in everything that we touch and everything that we actually that we actually come across. And I looked at it like this, when we start talking about prioritizing human beings, if you think about everything that we have as automated as we are, human hands touch everything, from the planes that we fly, to the cars that we drive, to the programs, even this Zoom, there's a human life and a human hand to it. So, what I had to think about is how many faceless names are involved in our everyday lives. And the question that I think we all have to ask ourselves, what are we co-sponsoring? Are we co-sponsoring the destruction of other human beings just in the products and the processes that we use? And that was a question that I really had to ponder. And I say it again. Are we co-sponsoring human abuse? When we look at a product, do we see the hands? Do we see the face of the people that actually have worked on this product? And I think if we look at life like that, then we will look at things a little differently. And it's not just for things, it's for people. I have a, even with processes, I have a young lady on my team that I have the most amazing team that anyone could ever have. I have a young lady that has a hard time, kind of processing and understanding some of the things that we do. And I find value in what she does. And rather than write her off, I've got to take a part of my humanness and I'll be devoting 2 weeks to her and simply to her. And do I have time to do it? No, but she's a human being. She has potential, and it's up to me to find the potential in her. And I think that we just have to, remember that when we're looking at things like this, we can't just think about, passion. I'm passionate about clothes. I'm passionate about what I do, or I love this, I love that. I think it's and it has to be an equation. We have to start thinking like 1 + 1 = 2. Human life equals care. And that's what we really, really have to start considering. there's this quote by C.S. Lewis, and I'm at a loss for exactly how it's quoted, but I'm going to try and paraphrase it. It says that pretty much when you try and wait on love or wait on care, the best thing to do is to start mimicking love and mimicking care. And the magical thing is that you'll eventually find that you actually care. So it just takes intention and it takes sacrifice to, we're basically recreating our whole core value system. And this is how we begin to value people over planet, over process, or over our products. And it's just that simple. You start with service, cashiers, waitresses, dry cleaner, just the people that serve us in everyday life. And you add humanness, because there's something about, it was beautiful to go to India and to be able to affect change there. But what can I do in my local situation? When someone's unkind to me, can I ask them, are you okay? Rather than easily getting offended. And I just think those everyday little things are the things that make us begin to go through the process of changing our mindsets. So what I did when I got back home, I'm back home, I've dealt with the sustainability thing. I know it's not enough. I also am into fashion. I love clothes. I love materials. I love everything about them. I love buying seasonally. I love all the things that I should not love. So I had to change my business model to a people-centered business model. And what did that mean for me? I wasn't really sure. So I knew the challenges that I faced in my business, and it was the same problems that I have. I want to buy every season. I want to buy something different. So instead of looking at that and thinking, well, you can't have your cake and eat it too. It's like, you know what, maybe we can. Maybe we can have our cakes and eat it too. And I'll tell you a little bit about my process, just because I think to create a new world, rather than trying to change what we have, we've got to start thinking differently. So what I did, I decided that, okay, I sew. There are just pretty much 7 or 8 core pieces that we all wear. And what I mean by that, the structure of everything is all the same. So it's like, could I do something that's a little different? So it took us, Anuja can attest, it took us about 1.5 years. So after completely throwing out our old model and just deciding that, this doesn't work for the world anymore, it doesn't work for where we are, how am I going to change this? So what I did was we created 8 core pieces, and we did something that was counterintuitive to our business model. We decided that we would ask people to buy fewer clothing. So we came up with a campaign that's called Buy Better Clothing. And in Buy Better Clothing, we are taking initiatives that's called Aware, and we're trying to make you aware, of who manufactures your clothes, of who purchases your clothes, who makes your clothing. And we're asking you to use a bit of artificial intelligence as you're trying on clothing, and to make a commitment to purchase 20 or fewer clothing items per year. That's completely counterintuitive to business model in terms of selling clothing. But we felt like we live in such a product-driven society that we had to do something completely different. So it's interesting because as we build a new world, one of the things that we are always trying to do, we're trying to build linearly. Okay, we can do this on top. But what we found is that if you think collaboratively, if you think small, then you can grow big. Because small means that every person in your organization, every person in your path, that if we collaborate together, we can really make something new and something different. And I believe that's the only way that we're going to actually create a new world, is to exchange our product-driven core value system, because that's what it is. As much as, I hate to say it, it is our core value system. And we've got to remember that things like innovation is a simple concept. It's not anything new or different. Sustainability you know, I don't know how many of us have worn hand-me-down clothes, how many of us have, you know, restyled a dress. All of that's the same thing. And we just really need to return to simplicity and just understand that that's the way that we put people over these processes and over the planet. And I just think that if we singularly will grow small enough to understand that we need each other, then we can have a great big new world. So I would like to start answering questions now.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Pamela. That was really inspiring. And I'm glad that someone is on this mission. I also see a lot of waste in the world, and I think it's a real shame. So I'm glad you're doing something about it. And we will open the floor for questions. We already have some very interesting ones in Mentimeter. For those, please also take a look and add in other questions in the link in the chat. I guess the first one that is a very interesting one is, how do you respond to the notion that sustainability is unaffordable for poor people?
Well, the thing is that, like I said, sustainability is simple because eventually we will launch another program. So I thought of that because, you know, when you're thinking about people, you have to think circularly. So you have to close the gap. So in closing the gap, what we realize is that that's an issue. So later in the year, we'll actually start a complete website of clothing exchange. So let's just say if you have 5 items that you put in the clothing exchange, then you can actually get an item out of the clothing exchange. So, you know, we're thinking about everyone in our process. And I think clothing exchanges, Paris does a good job with it. London does a good job with it. They actually have clothes bins on the side where the concept is to put clean, fresh clothing in these bins and people can go and pick them out. So I think that that's the best answer that I have, because I think one of the things that I understood in taking this journey is that I can do my small part and I can do that well. So I tried to close the gap by you know, adding this program, because that is one of the things that I thought about, but that's not the process that I've thought all the way through, you know, completely through. But I'd love to join with anyone who has a solution to that.
But I like that, right? Like, think about what you can do in your circle of control or influence. And like you said, it doesn't need to be, you don't need to have the most, I don't know, expensive, sustainable brand to be sustainable. All you could also do is restyle your mom's clothes and, you know, for example. Yeah, thank you for that. And I guess another question along the same lines around sustainability is that there is a lot of greenwashing of different companies adding the sustainable label to their clothes when it's not sustainable, right? Your reflection of the t-shirt that might be made of sustainable materials but is so cheap, how does that happen, right? So how do you think this greenwashing actually impacts people's perception of sustainability, and what could we really do about it?
Okay. Well, you know, we've thought a lot about that. And one of the things that we've noticed is that when we start thinking sustainability, you know, the first thing we think about is a whole bunch of words. I do a whole bunch of words and ugly clothes. So that's just, you know, what I think. So what we decided in the process is that the only way we could, and actually one of our team members came up with this. If we buy fewer clothing, then fast fashion won't be a thing, because we won't have the issues that we're having. See, here's the thing. Greenwashing, it's conscious washing. Let's not call it greenwashing. Let's call it conscious washing. You're washing your conscience because you can buy a whole lot of something and not impact the environment. So unless we change and we buy fewer items, then, you know, there's nothing we can do about greenwashing. But if we have fewer items, then we actually squeeze the manufacturer. If we get, our campaign is 100 million people to purchase 20 or fewer clothing garments per year. And you know, when you do the right thing, you squeeze the manufacturer. So they're only meeting us a demand. You know, I used to try and, you know, say, oh my gosh, fast fashion's awful. No, we're awful because they're just me. If we stop buying, they'll stop making.
Right. Yeah. No, it's definitely, yeah, supply and demand here.
Mhm.
And maybe thinking about your business model, right? So if we start buying, if we stop buying, the companies also don't make that much of a profit. So maybe even thinking about your company, you said that you have a completely different counterintuitive business model where you're encouraging people to buy less. So what is the criteria for success or the core metric of success for your organization?
Enough is enough. See, you know, what we've done, we have, when I was 19, I had a boyfriend, and he was an amazing boyfriend, but he taught me this concept called TAM. There's always more. So at 19, I sat down and I decided what I wanted in my life. And, you know, at 19, it didn't include a second house. It didn't include all these other things. And I knew that once you know, and for me, it was about happiness. It was about love. It was about family. It was about friendship. But at some point, it's enough. And we live in a society where nothing's ever enough, you know? And at some point, you know, in our business model, let me go back to what you're saying. In our business model, you know, we have numbers that we need, you know, we have KPIs we need to meet, and that's enough. Like, you know, because the problem isn't making the initial money. The problem is trying to grow 3 to 5% more every year. I mean, at some point, that's not a sustainable model. You know, that's just a race to the bottom.
Absolutely. And exponential growth, I mean, we all hear about it and talk about it, but we take it for granted as if it's organic, but it's not, right? It's
Right.
quite abnormal that way. And I'm curious still, when you say, I like what you said about enough is enough on KPIs, right? You hit something that you need and that's enough to sustain. Are there also different KPIs that you use to measure that success, different kinds that other businesses don't?
Well, you know, at this point, we're in infancy with this business. So, you know, I can't rightly answer that. You know, I know that we have, and our numbers are not great, you know, but we have numbers that we want to meet. And, you know, we've just decided that once we hit them, you know, we'll maintain, you know, and that'll be and I think the thing is that people forget about maintaining, because if you think about most major companies, you know, they come out with this amazing product, you absolutely love them. And then 5 years down the line, you buy the same product and it's trash. Because, you know, we've got to maintain, and we've got to change that system of growth to maintain, nurture. And I just think that's a better business model.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe speaking a little bit more about your company's purpose, the direction, how you operate, ways of working, all of that. What are some challenges that you faced along the way, and what could you share as learnings with this group here?
Okay. Well, clothing is really difficult because things change daily. And I can tell you my first challenge that we faced, and if Anuja's on here, she can chime in. Nobody gets what we're doing. That has been the biggest challenge. Nobody understands what we're doing. Now we're a year and a half into the process, and our pattern master is just completely understanding the process. So our biggest challenge, well, you know, once you see it visually, it won't be an issue, but our biggest challenge thus far has been to get people to come along with us and to really understand the process. The product is very simple, and once it's visual, people get it. But the concept of the product has been very, very difficult to understand. It literally was something that was in my head that I had to brain dump. And my partner and I worked together when she lived in Atlanta. So, you know, we knew each other. So when she moved back to Mumbai, you know, I called her up and I was like, hey, you know, let's work on this project. And she thought, okay, you know, she was, you know, ready to work with me. We'd worked before, but Anuja, can you type in the chat how long it took before you understood the product and the process? So, you know, the biggest journey has been, I'm not alone anymore because I have about 3 people now who understand it, but the biggest journey has been the loneliness of having to explain something. Now, I have a girlfriend here as well. She understood the concept very early on.
Mm. And what do you feel is the reason why it's so hard for people to understand the concept? What is tricky about it?
Because it's different. You know, it's so funny because if you look at media, if you look anywhere, you know, it's always more of the same, and it's always bigger of the same. You know, that's what we have. That's what we've been fed. I mean, that's what we eat. It's just more and bigger of the same, you know. And I think we've created something, you know, very different. You know, and I think that's the and it's just a different way of thinking. It's just like the prioritizing. You know, you've got to really train your mind to think differently. And I honestly think that if we use this concept in every business model, that we'll all become innovators, because we just have not thought to think about people before your product. You know, that hasn't been a concept. It's like, I'm going to invent something that people are going to love. You know, instead of, you know, what do people, you know, need, not what they want, but, you know, what do people need? What does our earth need? You know, how can we feed both? And I think that's where innovation kind of lives, in that area. And it's just been a long time. I mean, it's been a long time since we've really thought about that. But Anusha said in the chat that it took her about 2 months to understand the concept.
Right.
Yeah.
And and there's also the want versus need trap. Good observation there, right? That sometimes we mistake human-centric for serving something that people might want, or, you know, even artificially creating a need that doesn't exist. But ultimately what you're saying is that we need to understand what is a fundamental human need and aim to serve that. Right?
Yes. Yes.
Right. And can you speak a little bit more about, you know, how your organization is set up? You said you also work with these women in India who are helping you. Like, how does it all look? What is the structure? How do the different parts work together?
Well, this is our world. So we live on Zoom. So, you know, we say that we're divided by seas, but we're united by purpose. So we live on Zoom. So what that looks like. So the women in India, I've even through my old business model, so I've had a relationship with them since then. And what that looks like several things for us. We host the families as they come into the US to actually fundraise. So that's one way. And we have a consummate WhatsApp, Zoom relationship. You know, I've been to India 3 times, you know, to visit. And each time there's been such a dynamic change in what, you know, from the first time visiting to setting up to, you know, and of course there's been some setbacks, but for the most part, even COVID allowed the women to, you know, really hone in, because there are no, I mean, honestly, there were just no trucks driving up and down the highway looking for sex workers. So it actually pushed them into the center. You know, the women that would normally make money otherwise would come over and make money. So what that looks like is a percentage of our business, all of our business goes to the women in Jaipur, in Rajasthan. So a percentage of our business automatically goes to them, because it's going to take years for teaching, training. The couple that we work with actually set up the school for the children, because that's also an issue. You know, when you look at kids, they could bus them to school, but everybody made fun of them because you come from this village and, you know, your family does this and you can't play with that. And the young boys now are playing soccer. So that's that part of the business. That's pretty much, I'm so close to we call the people on the ground in India family. They come visit us. They've been once since COVID, but they typically will come visit us once a year. Well, actually, Anusha and my girlfriend Michelle have met both of them. So we have just continued to work like that. Now, in terms of our teamwork, Anusha and I started together, and we have 6 members now. and we work on Zoom on a regular basis. And we work collaboratively on everything. So everybody knows the business from end to end. So if we're working on a website, we all work on the website. Anuj and I are exclusive on the design end, but what we've created is a collaborative team where everybody counts, everybody matters, because when you've got that many people, it's good to have a different view rather than have a whole bunch of experts. Yeah. So that's pretty much what what our model looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's really great to hear that, because I was also listening into the session with NKC from Jaipur Rugs earlier, and I think we need more organizations that are helping society evolve for the better, right? I really truly believe organizations are the vehicles for transformation of entire societies, and this is just great. Thank you. There is a super interesting question that I've been waiting to ask you. So it says, you say people over planet, right? And that's what you've been talking about. But why shouldn't the planet come first, especially since, this is the home that we have, and if the planet doesn't survive, we won't survive. So why do you insist on people over planet?
Well, I'm going to give you a simple answer, and I'll try and explain it. Because love conquers all. If you put people first, then our planet will align itself. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is that in your process, if you put people first, you understand, that people are seeking, even in clothing, people are seeking something. When they, even if they want to change every day, change clothes every day, and whatever business process you're in, people are seeking something. And if you find out what they're seeking, then I believe that it can be met very efficiently, and it doesn't take a whole lot. The whole lot is just an aimless way to fill something. A whole lot of anything is an aimless way to fill something. And I think if you think about the people, that we will come up with new and innovative ways to do everything. Because remember, you're serving people. So even like thinking about the planet, greenwashing, you said it yourself. So whenever we're thinking about something that's innate, and even though our planet is living and it's breathing, I don't think that we can think as deeply about our innovative processes. I believe that innovation comes with people and through people. I think it's a God-given, I think there's something divine about innovation and changing. And I think that we'll just do a better job when we think about people first, because we have failed at thinking about the planet first. I think it's the best model, but I think because we're humans and there's just something innately in us that just want more and more and more. And I think until you feel that our planet will never be safe. That's just my humble opinion.
Oh, okay. It is interesting. And maybe just to dig a little bit on that, right? Even to play devil's advocate for a moment there. If people do indeed come first, and we recognize that right now there's a insatiable hunger, wouldn't it encourage the kind of greed that we're experiencing collectively as humans, and maybe overthrow the balance of the planet? Because that is really one of my fears, and I'm really just asking from a personal perspective now. How do you reconcile those two things?
See, we've already done that. You know what I mean? Like we've already done that. Like we've not been innovative in a very long time. We've already done that. We're here. That's why, we've got the Paris Accord. That's why, we've got United Nations SDG. So the fear of where we are, the fear that you have of where we are is where we are already, and we've just built a whole monster. If you start with people, then you can consider scaling back on capitalism, because the thing is that at the end of the day, people drive everything. We've almost destroyed the planet. So we have to take control, because as business owners and leaders, you know, I feel we're responsible for what's going on with the planet, you know, because we keep feeding we're feeding the monster. And that's the thing. So, you know, you have to start with people, because if you don't start with people, then the monster's always going to be there. And when I say put people first, it's kind of like, let me say it differently. If you were putting your 5-year-old first, then you wouldn't feed them goldfish all day. You wouldn't feed them. You would give them nice, healthy snacks. You know, you would make sure. So when you prioritize, you know, especially when manufacturing, when any company prioritizes people first, then, you know, even with the amount of office equipment you need, you know, if you're not on that efficiency, you know, you're not gonna need as much office equipment, because you're prioritizing, you know, like I can tell you, I work in India. So my priority, we work long hours, but my priority is sleep. Do not send me anything at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, because that tells me that you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you're not getting restorative sleep. So please don't send that to me. It's not that important, A, and B, you're not doing a good job. You should be sleeping. And that's my response. So I think what you're saying, I think we're already there, you know, and I think we've got to think of some new concepts, because it just has not worked with putting the planet first. Because I mean, I can speak from personal experience. You know, I upcycle because I like vintage clothing, but you know, until I got in this business and I actually saw what was going on, you got to remember, you know, people don't know that they're co-sponsoring abuse. When you go into a department store, and I'm sorry for talking about retail, guys, because this is my area. This is what I know. You know, you hear beautiful music, you may get some wine, you see beautiful clothing. You don't see the ugly things that are behind it. And even when you go online to see it, it seems so extreme that it doesn't even feel real. You know, it feels like they're trying to scare you with the boogeyman, you know, and I just think, you know, like I said, less buy less, and that puts a bottleneck at the manufacturer. Manufacturers they want to get paid. So, you know, they really want to only put out as much as we need. And it's changing the mindset. So when I say people first, it's really changing. It's changing the mindset of people.
Absolutely. And that I guess that's really crucial, right? For this to work, we need to be aware, like, as you said, we need to be aware of what we actually need versus what we might think we need in a system that tells us, hey, I need to now go and get a new dress from Zara because someone else has it. Like, I don't really need that, do I? So I totally see your point that it's people who have that awareness and have that mindset. And if you put them first, that naturally aligns with the needs of the planet.
But see, we're driving that as leaders. See, that's the thing. Like, you're not thinking you need a new dress from Zara because someone else has it. You're thinking you need a new dress because you saw it on social media and it looks really good on the girl. There's a process to all of this. So we're not really even making our own decisions. And that's why it's important in leadership that we start prioritizing people, because, you know, in and of yourself making your own decision, you probably would say, you know, I'll restyle this, but that's not what's in front of us. What's in front of us is new. So we follow what's in front of us. But as leaders, if we can, you know, decide that, hey, let's restyle this. Hey, let's only buy this item. Hey, let's recycle, go to this site and, you know, and trade clothes with some, you know, if we do that as leaders, then I believe that the mindset of the general population will change.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is actually a very practical question here for you, which I think is relevant in this discussion, right? How do you elegantly push back on people, on friends or family who pressure you to buy more or new clothes, or even buy them for you? Like, how do you do that as a minimalist? What's the right way?
Oh, wow. So that's really that's an interesting question, and one that we're going to have to address. First of all, this is a psychological thing. So read Henry, I think it's Henry Cloud's book on boundaries, because this is just a boundary issue. This is not a fashion issue. So this is a boundary issue that you know, just like you've minimized your life and you have put boundaries around what you're going to purchase, it may be time for you to put boundaries around these people.
Hmm. Can you say more? Like,
well, I can, I'm so literal that I'm just thinking, you know, I think the best way to, you know, well, let me ask a little bit further question. Do you want to have more clothing? And that's really the question, because, you know what I mean? If somebody else wants to have more, then, you know, there are ways they can restyle. But, you know, if they don't want to have more, I think it's very, I think it's, they shouldn't be pushed to have more than they want.
mhm. We have a hand raised from someone. I just want to check, is this the person who actually wrote the question? Do you want to clarify? Okay, go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for answering. Yeah, I've been on a sort of minimalist journey the last 7 or so years,
Oh, nice.
after discovering zero waste and going zero waste and being very passionate about that, but really alienated my family, and kind of ruined the relationship for some time. And so I've had to sort of cut back a little bit on that. And they just bombard me with clothes, you know. And I think it's, you say prioritizing people, you know, in some instances, I think it's really also, even if it's not the ideal situation long term, but to meet people where they're at, and then, you know, give them time to kind of adjust so that you can find that sort of healthy medium.
Yeah, I think that's important. And that's why we look at the circular approach of not just selling clothes, but asking people to give back and asking people to trade. In that situation, you know, if someone gives you something as a minimalist, then, you know, you have the option to keep it, or you could always donate it, you know, if that's what you feel, you know. And let me just say this, you know, I'm so sorry that that's happened to you. I mean, that's, you know, that's really sad that, you know, you care about, you know, the planet and you want to do better, but, you know, you are in a situation where you're feeling alienated. You know, I want to apologize that that's happening to you. I think, and I think it's a journey, it's your journey. And so you know, I think maybe, you know, just accept the clothing and say thank you, and then just don't have a conversation, because that's not a conversation that they're ready to have. And, you know, of course, you're going to go to family, they're going to go, where's this? Or you didn't wear that, or you didn't, you know, and, you know, that's, you know, it's up to you whether or not you want to, you know, fight that battle and keep 2 or 3 items and wear it, you know, for the people that are there. Or, you know, if you want to just donate it and just tell them, you know, I'm very happy with what I have, and I've donated.
We actually have another question from the polls, and I just want to come back to that, if that's okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right. And this is a very interesting one, because you mentioned that your approach to your business is maintaining, right? So you said you don't need to grow beyond what is enough for you. Mm-hmm. And if you're prioritizing maintaining versus growing the company, how do you balance that with the potential impact that you could have if you would grow and scale?
Okay. Well, you know, I think that's just a matter of 2 things. One of the reasons why we all work together. So, you know, I have a team of 6, and one is, you know, well, yeah, we're 6 now. One of the things that we do is we have these conversations, and I'll say something, and I said, listen, argue with me. So, you know, we have a push pull. We just had a push pull. We had a possible investor that wanted to come in, and so we set up the deck for the person, and you know, it was going to be way too much for us to be able to. We would give too much of our company away. So one of my employees had a private conversation with me and said, you know, let's just do what we're doing. Let's just keep it scaled. So I think in that situation, you just have to make sure that you've surrounded yourself with people that you respect, and that you've given the opportunity and the privilege to be able to speak into your life and tell you truth in your business. And I think because we have a collaborative business model, our business belongs to us and not just to me. So not having that weird hierarchy, gives a lot of freedom. So I feel like I've got 5 people who would pull my coattail, or I would pull their coattails.
Okay. So it's what you're saying, right? It's also the balance between what you need as a business and the outside world, the potential impact, and that is it is more important right now to maintain that. Okay. Thank you for answering.
Okay.
All right.
Someone else had their hands up. I couldn't.
Yeah, we were just wondering if they wanted to add it to the Mentimeter, or if they have it back up. So let's hear them again.
Okay.
All right.
How do we openly and honestly, and that our system right now between the producers and the consumers, we are both producer and consumer, of course, but there are producers who are spending their blood, tears, and sweat, and that's what we're drinking as we consume. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. And that's why prioritizing people is so important. I mean, and we are co-sponsoring abuse. We really, really are. And that's why in every industry, we need to change how we do things, and change our core value system, because when we prioritize people, then we're prioritizing all people, so, when you're looking at, it's, and from the least to the greatest is how I think, you prioritize others. But that was a very good point. Thank you for that.
And maybe to that point, right, there is a question here about your take on punishing fast fashion. From your perspective, should we be punishing fast fashion? Because it does seem that they're making money from cheap cloth, right, at the cost and expense of the planet and the people. So what do you think?
Well, what I can tell you is that in the next 5 years, which isn't fast enough, there'll be laws that will legislate and punish them. But I think they'll go black market, and it'll be up to us as a unit. And I think the biggest thing is that we have to understand that, like, I'm asking for 100 million people to make the investment to purchase fewer than 20 items per year, because I understand that 1 of a million is still a million. 1 of 100 million is still 100 million. We've gotten to a point now where we feel like we don't matter. Our lives are based on, what we see on the internet, likes. So it's funny because as we take these selfies and we show, and we show ourselves, we actually are becoming more transparent, and we're actually disappearing as individuals. And we're, people feel like they don't make a difference, that it doesn't. And I have those little things in my head. It's like, why didn't I just pick 5,000 people? That's like, what? Because there are enough people on this earth to you if you think small, you can grow big, because it's one person at a time. But there's a shame now, and this is a weird thing where there's a shame in, why, I only have 5 people that are doing it. Okay, so there are 5 of us. You know what I mean? So let's let the 5 of us do it. And we've just got to think like that. I mean, we've got to change our core value system and understand that we really do, we're important as individuals.
Absolutely. And there's a call for a movement there. Yes, let's do it, because really, even 5 people, 1 person matters, right? They matter. It's not about the numbers. It's about the humans behind. Yeah.
But one of 100 million is still 100 million. So do the math. You know what I'm saying? You start with 1 in anything. You start with 1, so.
Yeah. So Mentimeters empty, and I see that we have Caroline who had a hand raised. So let's open the floor for questions directly. Caroline.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, I mean, you keep on saying one in a million. I fully agree, but I also believe that we have so much power, in the sense, like, ask everyone to bring a friend, and they bring a friend, and they bring a friend. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all connected. And I mean, you talk a lot about India. I'm very familiar with the country. And I mean, what we do there, like this whole fast fashion thing and how the whole dye goes into their water, you know, like, as you said, we're destroying a complete community, next generation. They have, it's serious. It's not what we see in the media. It's true. It's not just something that scares us. It's reality for so many people. The problem is that we in the Western world don't understand that this problem will come to us, because where are these people supposed to grow their food? Where are their, you know, like climate change, everything. I mean, there is a reason why all this movement in the world is happening, because we're part of the bigger problem. So solving this, you can even see that from a selfish point of view. And thank you so much, Pamela, for sharing all your thoughts and being so direct. And I really enjoy it, I have to say. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Caroline. Thank you. Yeah. And she's right. You know, the thing about it is that, you know, like we can talk about fast fashion, but we really have to talk about people, and we have to talk about what people want, because if we can change the value system, then that's where it really starts, you know, because, you know, even dealing with things like polyester is not great for the world. But the truth of the matter is that too much of anything is too much.
Yeah. Are there any other questions in the group? You can also just raise your hand. You don't have to add anything here. If not, I actually have one, because I'm from India. Oops. All right. And I am really curious to hear a little bit more about your experience, you know, starting a company and mobilizing that support in India. It's a very different environment from, you know, from the US, from the West, everywhere in the world. Even within India, there's just so much diversity that people often say that it's quite difficult to start a business in India. So how was your experience in setting this up?
Well, you know, it's really interesting because I think you and I had a discussion yesterday. As a brown person, I feel amazing in India. I love India, you know, and people are like, oh, it's so harsh. But I'm like, you know, it's a sea of beautiful brown people. Let's just party and have fun. So let's start with that. You know, call me crazy, love India. But I had an intern, and she's the most amazing intern ever. She was magical. I absolutely loved her. So she and I just kind of kept in touch. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. She worked with me. She has a master's degree from SCAD here in the US and lived in Atlanta. So she worked for my business when it was, you know, just doing slower fashion. So she and I just kept in touch, and COVID hit. And I, you know, I was home, you know, and she was home. I was like, hey, you know, I've got this weird idea. I've been drawing out this stuff, but I've got this weird idea. I was like, and this is what I would tell her all the time. I would say, and I'm going to get to the business part, I promise. So I would tell her, I would say, listen, if jeans were invented today, nobody would wear them. We would say, oh, they pinched my side. Oh, the crotch is so bad. Why are the pockets so thick? This is ridiculous. So we would say all of that. So every time I would give her a concept, she would go, huh, what? I would say, just trust me, just go with it. So we went with it. So once we had to get the product on paper first. So once we got the product on paper, I just walked her through everything. Like I said, you know, Zoom is my friend. Like I'm probably more at home, you know, and Zoom than I am, you know, just out meeting people, because this is how we worked. We worked on Zoom, we worked on WhatsApp. We had some snafus, but you know what? Life is going to happen. Because I've done this before, it was probably easier for me, you know, to be able to do it. So I knew what was coming. You know, she was disappointed when certain things happened. I was like, listen, this is what happens. So it was just so organic. And honestly, it sounds crazy, but this is divine. It's not, I mean, I can't put it any other way than this is a divine calling. You know, I'm not doing this because, oh, I want to do this, you know, this is a divine calling. So everything has lined up. Everything has been hard. Everything has been a lot of hard work. But, and I think because she has such faith in me and I have such faith in God, that whole transformation you know, and I think it's transformed through our entire team. We're all of different faiths. Some of us are of no faith, but we do have faith in our world, and we have faith in our product. And it's been fine. You know, like I said, as a brown person in America, you know, my life is kind of like brown people in India. So I know the whole cultural parts of it, because I can go up to like Bankhead Highway and find the same culture in terms of the haggling back and forth, you know, the long teas. So it's so funny because my team is actually more impatient than I am, you know.
Thank you so much for sharing that, and thank you so much for sharing your stories and your ideas. It's really something to think about, right? And I love what you said about each of us having a role to play, and together we can become that big number, right? It starts with one person, it starts with something small, but then we have the power to make something big out of it.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Pamela.
And thank you for being the best moderator ever. I appreciate you. Caroline, hit me up on the side, because I think Caroline and I are going to have some hanging out to do.
All right. I'm going to join you.
Okay, come on, let's do it.
I'm going to join you there. It sounds like fun. Okay, then thank you everyone for also joining this session. And yeah, we will see you in the next sessions. I guess we have a conversation cafe afterwards, but now we are going into a fireside chat in the main garden.
Okay, so I'll meet you guys in the main garden.
All right, see you.
And thank you for attending my chat. I really enjoyed all the questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.